All right, so now we're going to jump into week 4, part 1, exercises, but they're short and simple today. The purpose of these exercises are to be sort of like a hello world and crash course into WPF, Windows Presentation Foundation. The idea now is that we're leaving the boring, bland console world. You've probably had enough to give yourself a headache with all the simple, bland, mundane console-ish applications that we've been building to date. Now we're going to have a little bit of fun, get into some GUI related stuff. And what we're going to do is just start off with a walkthrough of the tools available at your disposal for developing WPF applications. And we're going to do a simple hello world, and then we're going to expand that simple hello world in exercise 2 to do a little bit of event handling as well. And you're going to find that event handling is really nice in the Microsoft world. In the Windows Forms world, it was great. In WPF, it's just as great as well. You're gonna really like how to create an event handler here. So the trick first is to, when you're starting to create a new project, find the correct template. We're going to look for a WPF template. I already have mine in my recent projects, but I'm going to show you how to find it. So in your search bar, type in WPF. And I'm assuming you've already done a new project, so you're at this window already. And when you do the WPF search, you're going to find that there's a number of different applications here that you have. We're going to focus on WPF app.NET Core. So this one in particular, all right, this is the one we're going to go with. So I'm going to hit next, and I'm going to call this W4P1 exercise 1. I'm going to give it a home. Okay, hit select folder, and let's create. And don't forget, we should leave that checkbox checked. All right, you should see something like this. Don't worry about the initialization. It'll fix itself in a moment. It says you can continue working, but either way until it's done. So we can look at everything all together. Okay. So what you're seeing now is your main window, your starting point, the first window that'll pop up when you run this application. If you do not see this, and instead you see a C# file like we've seen in the past already, it's possible you did what I did with my first mistake the first time around. Was I thought I clicked WPF.NET Core, and actually it still ended up doing a console application. So you still have a console application. You'll want to close this, delete the project, and try creating again, and make sure that you have the WPF.NET Core project highlighted. And when you're hitting create. So if you do not see this, you created a console application by accident. You'll want to delete and start again. All right, so what we have here is our main window, like I was saying. And what we want to do is start with just exploring what's in front of us. Now, every window that you create actually has two files that you work with. You have our XAML file, all right, main window.xaml, so you can see here where my mouse is. And then you have a main window.xaml.cs, our C# file. So where all of the code behind goes. All right, and I'll beef that up to 150%, so it's better to see. But yeah, so essentially this is our main window. What's interesting is that you'll see it's a public partial class. And partial class is interesting because it tells the system that this is a class, but there's more to it somewhere else on the system, which is actually the XAML file. All right. Now, what we'll do is we'll explore the tools that are available at our disposal And in fact, over here where it says properties, this window, you should have a properties window somewhere because you're going to be accessing it a lot now. We didn't touch properties at all up until now. Now we're going to need this window heavily for everything we do. We're going to use this little window to configure every object that we drag into our window. If you do not find it, properties, you can go to view and you'll find properties somewhere here, and then you can drag it over. All right. Now you should also see Toolbox. All right. Toolbox has all of your little toys that you can drag onto the screen. All right. And you can search for whatever you're looking for, like a label. All right. We'll come back to that in a sec. So I'll just exit that out. If you do not see Toolbox, oh, and be careful, do not hit the X. I keep making this mistake. I probably will make this mistake eventually in front of you all, but X actually closes this and makes it go away. In fact, oops, there I did it. If you find that this or any other item you accidentally X out, just go to view and you're going to have to look for Toolbox, which is right there. And there it is. It'll be back. If I click away, it'll hide. That's the one thing I like about Visual Studio is these little drawers. So you can click on the toolbox, appears, click away, it goes away. So you can maximize the space you have in front of you. Below it is something called Document Outline, and this is a hierarchy of the items we drag onto the screen. So sometimes you want to click on an item to configure it, but you're not clicking the item. Come to Document Outline, find the item itself, and click directly on it. Right? And that'll allow you to be able to work directly with that particular object. All right. So now let's do a simple hello world so we can actually do a little bit of work with it. Now, but before I do, you'll notice one other window I have to point out is the XAML window down here. So while we have our WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get editor, your drag and drop editor as I prefer to call it. All right, you can drag and drop stuff here. The code for it is here, and you may have realized by now that XAML kind of looks like your fancy HTML or XML style markup, and so it's easy for you to reason through what you need to do to write code as necessary to really perfect the window you're trying to build. So if you find that, sometimes you're going to see me eventually start taking advantage of XAML because I can't configure it here, it just becomes very handy in doing so. Now, I have clicked on an item. I've clicked on the grid. You'll notice on the document outline, I've highlighted grid. All right. My properties window changed. All right. My properties window changed to be the properties of that particular grid. I'm not going to handle grid right now. What I want to do is just get comfortable with dragging hello world, a label that says hello world onto the screen. So I'm going to go to Toolbox. I'm going to search for a label. I'm going to drag that label there. Stretch it out a bit. Actually, you notice that I can rotate it and I can stretch it. All right. And so now, maybe I'll put it somewhere there. You notice that it allows you to guide and center. Now it's in dead center of the screen. Now the label is highlighted. The properties here relate to the label. Now the first thing I recommend, now this is a static label, so my recommendation doesn't really apply here because I'm never going to update it. But if you're doing anything, if you're going to do anything to a particular object you drag on there, you must give it a name. Like for example, LB hello. All right. Now if you want to change the text for the label, content. You'll see content right here, or hey, there's a nice little search bar. Search for content. And it gives you everything related to content. So you can see here that you're still going to have pretty well the same view. I'm going to change label to hello world. All right. And you'll see the XAML has actually changed in real time as well. Now, one of the tricky things with smaller screens is you're going to find you're going to get really congested in this area. I have a very a very high resolution monitor I'm working with right now, so you're able to see everything. But you're going to find that it gets very congested pretty soon. So that could be one of the downsides here. So you may want to play around and see how you might want to adjust Visual Studio to your liking, if it's possible even. Anyway, getting back to this. So we can also play with the layout, see what it looks like. There's center. Maybe can I center it? You can center it that way. You're also wondering, well, okay, that's the font. What about, so that's the look and feel. What about the font? Why don't I play with the font? Well, let's search for font. So there's my font, Segoe UI. See, there's probably all kinds of fonts there to work with. I'm going to leave it as the base font. 12 pixels, well, we can do a bit better than that. Let's try 24 pixels. Oh, that fits nicely. Make it bold. Oops, there's bold. You want to go italic? Sure, why not? And so now we basically have a very simple hello world. And you'll see the properties here for hello world, the label, are in view. I'll go back to the document outline. Let's see what it looks like. We have our window at the top. We have a grid. And then we have LB hello. And you got to be very careful. Sometimes you want to configure something and you just can't because it's not in the right focus. Like you're clicking on, you want to handle grid, but you're highlighting LB hello. Well, now there's no font for grid. So if I X that out, now I actually have all the features of grid. But play around with it, get to know it, and let's give it a run. And there's hello world. And you'll notice that there's some extra buttons up here for you to debug. So you can see track focused element, right? That opens up the live visual tree, right? That allows you to see the status of every individual object. Display layout adorners. Well, okay, it's inside the grid, it looks like. Let's see, this one says select element. Okay, so I can highlight the element and actually see its details. So you can see the live visual tree there. And then this one is go to live visual tree, which is this window as well. All right, so that's your simple hello world. You should have that simple window pop up that says hello world right there. And you just hit stop, or you hit the X on your window and it'll close the application for you. So this is the first exercise, so exercise 1. So we're just seeing the Visual Studio layout. We're seeing how to make a simple hello world. Now, I would invite you to actually pause this, have a look around, play with Toolbox, right? Just get comfortable with it and really understand. Just drag a few things on there and play with it. This is your chance to really get good with the Visual Studio editor here for our WPF forms. All right, let's move on to exercise 2. So exercise 2 says to create a simple WPF application to display hello world. Have a button with the text click me, and upon clicking it, change the text on the label to say I've been clicked. We're going to have a static counter to indicate the number of times I've been clicked, quote unquote. All right, so let's start by creating a fresh new project. So I'm going to do a Control-Shift-N. And you should see WPF.NET Core here. If you have to search for WPF again, go ahead and do that, but you need WPF.NET Core for this. So I'm going to click on my recent project there, hit next. I'm going to call it W4P2 exercise, P1 exercise 2. And give it a home. And it's loading. We'll let it load. So the first thing we'll do is I want to show you how to reduce the size of this window. Maybe the window is just too big for you. It gets a bit tricky because you actually have to highlight the right item in order to change the window size. Like for example, if I right click right now and I just start dragging smaller, you notice that the window did not get smaller. The grid got smaller. So I'm going to do Control Z to undo. Instead, let's look at document outline. So you can click on window there and try and reduce the size now. Now that's much better, and it should reduce the size of the grid as well. Right? So if I click on grid has also been resized as well. So again, to recap the trick, to resizing your window is making sure the window is highlighted in your document outline. All right. If you lose document outline, I can't remember if I mentioned this, but if you lose document outline, view, other windows, and you should see document outline somewhere here. All right. So this is how you can get back your views that you lose if you accidentally exit out. All right, well, this window is a good size for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag a label. So I'll search for label, and I'm going to drag it. And let's configure it again. Put it there. Let's stretch it across the screen. And it's highlighted. So and it says type label, so I know it's highlighted. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it LB Hello. And let's change the content to Hello World. Yeah, let's change the font, increase the font. So, but I won't go too big. Maybe I'll do like an 18. Let's play with its alignment. So let's just search for align. Horizontal alignment looks centered. Horizontal content, that's better. Vertical content, centered. All right, so we have our centered hello world. It's important that we name it as something, in this case LB hello, and it'll come in handy in a moment. What we need now is a button. So I'm going to search for a button. There's our button right there. I'm going to drag it, throw it on there. So I threw it there. Let's increase the size. And let's adjust it. Let's center it nicely. Sure, let's put it there. Now let's change this name to something different like BTN Hello, for lack of a better choice. And let's change the text. So content, when you X out your search bar, you see button is there. Let's change it to, let's say click me. You can play with the font and all that. I'm not going to. All right, so we have a button called BTN Hello. We have a label called Hello World. What we're going to do now is we're going to create an event handler for that button. And the nice thing about creating an event handler, there's two approaches to it. You can click on the little thunderbolt that's right here, right, making sure button's highlighted, and you can see, and actually the thunderbolt exists for basically every object that you drag over. And you can see the different possible event handlers you can create. And all you have to do, and don't do this right now, but you can just double click on any one of these white boxes, and next to, and it'll create the event, that particular event handler, right? But I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to show you an easier way. Oh, and by the way, to leave that, just click on the little wrench there right next to it. So instead, the easiest way to click on an event handler for this particular button is to double click on the button. But before you do that, again, I cannot stress enough that you must change the name to something relevant. Okay? You must change the name. If you decide, oh, I created the event handler first and I want to change the name after, no, you're going to cause a lot of headache. It is possible to do, but more advanced developers would understand what to do. So for you, rule of thumb, change the name first, then create the event handler. And we create the event handler by double clicking on the button. So I'm going to double click on this button. And it actually jumped to our CS file. All right, and you'll see again back here, public partial class, main window, extends window, and we see here btn hello click. Now the reason why it's important to change the name is because it appends the object name to the event handler. So btn hello underscore click. So that's the name of our event handler. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this to modify our label lb hello. So what we can do first is inside btn hello is I want to access lb hello. Now the beauty of this is that I've changed the name already to lb hello. So I'm going to say, and if I want to do any work with lb hello, that label, I'll just start typing it in. I'll say lb hello. You see it's there, ready to autocomplete. And I want to change the text. So it's lbhello.content. There it is. Equals. I'm going to say I've been clicked. I'll leave it and put a semicolon. And you'll notice that my event handler is ready to go. Before I hit run, notice that we have a constructor right above. So sometimes you want to initialize stuff. You can do that right here inside your constructor. All right, we're ready to run. So I'm going to hit play. All right, and you notice that they've resized the window. There's hello world. If I hit click me, it's changed it to I've been clicked. Notice we did not have to redeclare lb hello. It was once we give an object a name, behind the scenes it is declared and instantiated for us. So that's the beauty of this. We don't have to do anything. All right, so the question said to keep track of how many times you've been clicked. So let's enhance this to do that. So let's add in a class variable. Let's say static int count equals 0. And what I'll do is modify my line to say I've been clicked, add a bit of a space, and then say plus count plus, open up some quotes, hit space, times. And don't forget to increment your counter. So count plus plus. I mean, you could have embedded the count plus plus inside of here. Would have done the same thing. But now let's give it another run. And so hit click me, and then click 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. All right. And so that completes exercise 2. Now, if you haven't already done so, take a moment, play with this, get comfortable with this, and understand the different ins and outs of creating a WPF application. Because now we're going to start taking things a little step further. Next step is to move on to part 2 of week 4. And then from there, we can get on to the next set of exercises after this in order to be able to further develop our knowledge of WPF applications.